Lie detection is not about microexpressions. And there's a lot of false TikTok clips and Instagram clips and reels. There's all this stuff out there about microexpressions. And microexpressions don't work unless you have a baseline for the person that you're assessing, which is why it works so well for you with your partner. Because you have lots of hours of exposed time. You understand your partner's baseline. What's normal. And then you can identify the derivations from the norm, just like you said. That doesn't mean that lie detection can't be used against a stranger. It just means you have to understand what you're looking for. Instead of looking for micro expressions, you're looking for macro observations, large observations. Your point about how your partner's pitch increases when they're uncomfortable, that's a micro expression. Not everybody's pitch increases. Some people's pitch actually goes down. But for your particular partner, it goes up. That's essentially a micro expression of a tell for them. Yawning, on the other hand, yawning is a macro observable. Because whenever we're putting effort into anything, the more cognitive effort you put into it, the more cortisol is created, the more that the body then demands an increase in oxygen flow, and the frequency of yawning occurs.
Super interesting.
If you've ever seen if you remember being a kid in a boring class in middle school or elementary school or high school, what did you do all the time? Yawn. Even though you got a good night's sleep.
Totally.
You're like, why am I yawning right now? I don't even know. Right? It's because there's all this stress in your brain and your body's saying, I need more oxygen to support this cortisol processing. So you yawn. Yawning is a clear macro observable indicator of increased effort. So effort's your best way of telling if somebody's lying to you. Just like if you're at the border of Canada and the United States and you ask about drugs and that person yawns. Now you're like, oh, you're putting some effort into this. Right? So that's one of the things that you're looking for. One of the best tells that are macro in nature actually have to do with the questions that you ask. So there's two really powerful tells that you can look for when you're trying to determine if somebody's lying to you. The first is called a chronological question. The second is called a feelings question. These are two types of questions that are strong at identifying if somebody is fabricating to you, right? With a feelings-based question, you ask them how they feel about a specific moment in time, right? And then you see their response. In a perfect world, you do this with somebody who doesn't know that you're testing them for lie detection, right? But if you think about it, whenever somebody is asked an emotional question, a feelings-based question, the low effort response is real. The high effort response is repressed, right? So for example, my grandmother died recently. I was very close with my grandmother. So if anybody asks me a feeling-based question about my grandmother, it's going to be very natural right away for me to feel the true feelings that I felt about my grandmother. So if I lie about my true feelings, there's going to be a delay in time. There's going to be an amount of effort that you can see and see in my facial expressions and hear in my voice. Because a feelings-based question is something that's very difficult to get rid of, right? So for example, was your first experience with plant-based medicine something that made you happy? Everybody who just watched that response knows that whatever you're about to say is going to be true, right? Because as soon as I finish the question, if you guys can play it back, your face told the whole story. Whatever you're about to say is taking no effort from you. You lit up, dude. Your face just lit up. Right? That's a feelings-based question.
Right.
So now if I saw your face, like you smiled, I don't know if you noticed, like you smiled possibly bigger than I've seen you smile the entire show.
Totally.
Now, if I saw that smile happen and then I saw that smile change before you started to answer, now I know that you're introducing effort. Right? You're introducing effort, which means that you are cultivating the response. So it's a less honest response for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you don't want to admit to it, or maybe because you don't want to confuse me. Who knows? But you're about to alter your response if I see that change. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you finish.
The second example is what's known as a chronological question. I want to equip you with both of these.
This is great.
The second example is a chronological question. Now, the chronological question is partially tied to your native language. Because if you're part of a native language, it reads from left to right. or if you're part of a language that reads from right to left, if you're part of a language that reads from top to bottom, if you're part of a language that reads from bottom to top, it changes what you're supposed to be looking for. But essentially, the idea is that when you challenge somebody with a chronological question, their natural response is going to be for their eyes to go to the same place that they would reference a timeline, right? So if I ask you, what was your favorite birthday before you were 13 years old? So people can see already. People can see your eyes. They saw your eyes go up because your native language is English. And then they saw you scan from left to right. So you're you're referencing your own history.
Right.
You're trying to find what was the best memory. If you were lying, or if you were trying to lie, I would see you reference the right side of your...
Like kind of look down and
and you would say,
interesting.
What's my creative brain what's the best answer? Not, what is the history? You replayed your birthdays.
Right.
Whereas somebody who's fabricating is creating something new, right?
Yeah.
The looking up or looking down is less impactful as much as addressing the chronology of the timeline.
That's so interesting to think about. It also looks at like this kind of neurolinguistic archival process of the brain, and actually how we read is actually how we read our own brain.
It's how you read your brain. It's how you read another person's face. One of the key pillars to disguise is actually understanding that when people look at you, they look at you the same way that they read a page. So that means when people look at you, they look at the upper left corner of your face before they look at the lower right corner of your face. And that's why when you ask somebody to describe someone that they saw once, what can they usually recall? Hair color, skin color, hair texture.
Yeah.
Because that's identifiable in the upper right corner of your face, upper left corner of your face. They have a hard time remembering if you had a beard. They have a hard time remembering if you had blue eyes or brown eyes, because the first thing their brain looks at is it's just like reading a page. They look up there. You could have a fucking peg leg over here and they wouldn't remember because they look there first, right? And that's when you're building a disguise, you're building it to accommodate how they're going to look at you. When you're building a lie, you're doing it the same way so that you know how you're going to reference the information in that lie.
And then, so if, let's say, I think, so like in Hebrew texts, you read, bottom right to top left, right? So if that was your native text and that was the native way that you would do it, someone might say, they were wearing sandals. And they were like, so it could go in a certain way. And I know that, in marketing, we always think of like how we organize a page. And we understand that people are going to look from that top left down to bottom right. So there's a kind of a way that people are going to go. But then I imagine if you're doing advertisement in China or in, Israel and Middle East, you would actually organize things differently because that's the way that the mind would start to track.
Exactly. So think about all the international businesses out there who are taking their American webpage and then they're translating their webpage, but that's all they're changing. The most important information is still in the upper left corner. The logo is still in the upper left corner. Instead of being like, hey, we're translating this into Hebrew, let's flip the whole thing on its side.
Right.
And the most important thing should actually happen in the lower right corner of the landing page. Right? People, they're not even thinking about it. This with Chinese, they read from top to bottom before they read from left to right. So you want to put all of your best, most important nuggets kind of on the left-hand side of the screen. Your best pictures, your best graphics, your best CTA. Because by the time they get to the right side, they're not even paying attention.
So fresh, so new.